I watched my mother-in-law poison my champagne at my own wedding reception. Then I switched our glasses and let her drink it. That probably sounds insane. Let me explain. I was fixing my veil at the bar, this gorgeous copper backsplash I'd spent 3 months restoring by hand. The metal was polished so perfectly it worked like a mirror. That's the only reason I saw her. Julia, my brand new mother-in-law, standing right behind me. She didn't see my eyes watching in the reflection. She just saw my champagne glass sitting there. I watched her pull out this tiny glass vial from her clutch. 3 clear drops fell into my drink. I didn't turn around. Didn't gasp. Didn't do anything. I just waited until she walked away to go schmooze with some senator's wife. Then I reached out, calm as anything, and switched our glasses. Her poison was now in her hand. And the real wedding drama was about to start. Now, most brides would be losing their minds in the bathroom right about now. But I'm a restoration architect. I deal with buildings that are literally falling apart for a living. I've seen what happens when foundations crack, when support beams fail, when structures that look solid are actually seconds from collapse. Panic doesn't fix anything. Clear thinking does. What I felt wasn't fear. It was this cold, calculating certainty. Like when you're looking at a beam that's carrying too much weight and you just know, it's about to snap. You can almost hear it groaning. That's what this moment felt like. I walked back to the head table. My heels clicked against the hardwood floor. I checked my pulse. 80 beats per minute. Elevated, but controlled. I smoothed down my dress and sat next to Sebastian, my husband. The pediatric surgeon who saves children's lives but somehow couldn't see that his own mother was toxic. He squeezed my hand under the table. Looked at me with so much love it almost hurt. "You look beautiful," he whispered. He had no idea that 10 feet away, his mother was about to drink the champagne she'd meant to destroy me with. I looked across the reception hall. Julia was sitting now, holding court with my parents. Laughing at something my dad said. Playing the perfect matriarch. Then she looked at me. Her eyes were cold. Dead things buried under expensive mascara. She raised the glass, my glass, in this little toast. This smirk on her face that said, "Checkmate, sweetheart." She thought she'd won. Thought I was just some lucky girl who'd stumbled into her dynasty. A problem she could solve with money or chemicals. I picked up my water glass. My hand didn't shake. I took a slow sip. The water was cold and tasted like clarity. I watched Julia take another drink of the champagne. She was so confident. So sure of herself. She'd spent 2 years trying to bulldoze me out of her son's life. Called my work dirty. Offered me $100,000 to disappear. But she forgot something important about restoration architects. We know exactly where the weak points are. We know exactly when something's about to collapse. I set my glass down, smiled back at her, and waited. To understand why I didn't stop her, why I didn't grab her wrist and scream for help right then, you need to understand our history. This wasn't some sudden crime of passion. This was the final stage of a demolition project Julia had been planning for 2 years. The Pembrokes are what people call old money. Which really just means their money is old and they're terrified of anyone who actually works for a living. I met Julia at an estate inspection. I was wearing work boots and a hard hat, covered in drywall dust. She looked at my hands like they carried some disease. "Are you hiring help for remodeling?" she asked Sebastian. Right in front of me. When he told her I was his girlfriend, she didn't smile. Just said, "Oh." That single syllable carried so much disdain it could have stripped paint off walls. The insults were never loud. They were strategic. Small cracks designed to make me collapse from the inside. She'd forget to invite me to family dinners. Introduce me to their friends as Sebastian's little project manager, completely ignoring my master's degree and architectural license. At their Christmas party, she told a room full of people that Sebastian had always had a soft spot for charity cases. I was standing right there. When I restored a historic church that made the cover of Architectural Digest, she said it was cute that I had hobbies. Every encounter was designed to make me feel small. To make me doubt myself. to make me leave before she had to force me out. But the real breaking point happened 6 months ago. I was sitting in her library. She slid this cream-colored envelope across her mahogany desk. Inside was a cashier's check for $100,000. "It's a severance package," she said. "You're a lovely girl, Margot, but let's be realistic. You're new money. You build things. We own things. You'll never be comfortable at this table. I'm just trying to save you the embarrassment of trying." I looked at that check. It was more money than my parents made in 2 years combined. Then I looked at her. I didn't tear it up. Didn't throw it in her face. I just slid it back across the desk. "I think you're underestimating the cost of labor, Julia. I'm not for sale." That's when her eyes changed. That's when I stopped being a nuisance and became a threat. And threats need to be eliminated. There's this concept in psychology called an extinction burst. When a toddler realizes screaming isn't getting them what they want, they don't quiet down. They scream louder, break things, escalate to this frantic peak right before they finally give up. It's the last desperate explosion to force the world back under their control. The week before the wedding was Julia's extinction burst. She called our florist on Tuesday and tried to cancel everything, claiming I'd died in a car accident. Thank God the florist called me first. On Thursday, I found her in the bridal suite inspecting my veil. When she left, there was this jagged tear right through the lace. She claimed it caught on her ring, but I know the tensile strength of French lace. You have to want to rip it. I fixed it with gold thread, a restoration technique I use on damaged fabrics. I didn't tell Sebastian. I knew if I did, she'd twist it. Call me paranoid. Say I was stressed and imagining things. She relied on the fact that her behavior was so insane that no rational person would believe it. So when I saw that vial at the reception, everything clicked. This wasn't just hatred. This was the final detonation. She couldn't stop the wedding, so she decided to ruin it. She wanted me sick, humiliated, wanted to prove to every high society guest in that room that I was weak and unworthy of the Pembroke name. She wanted a disaster. I just decided to let her be the victim of it. Structural failure is rarely instantaneous. Before a building collapses, it groans. Rivets pop. Wood splinters. You just have to be quiet enough to hear it. The reception hall was loud with applause as Sebastian finished his speech. He was charming, self-deprecating, perfect. Sat down and kissed my cheek, whispering that he was the luckiest man alive. Then the room went quiet. The tapping of a spoon against crystal echoed like a warning bell. Julia stood up. She looked regal in her silver gown, holding that champagne flute, the one with the gold rim, the one she'd poisoned, high in the air. The room waited. She smiled at the guests, then turned to look at me. It was a predator's smile. "Marriage," she began, her voice projecting with that practiced finishing school tone, "is about partnership. It's about knowing who you are and where you come from." A few of her friends chuckled. "And most importantly, it's about trust. Knowing that the person sitting next to you has your best interests at heart." She looked me dead in the eye on the word trust. I didn't blink. I raised my water glass in response. A silent acknowledgement. Let her think I didn't know. Julia raised the poisoned glass. "To the happy couple." She tipped it back. I watched the golden liquid disappear. Watched her swallow. 1 gulp. 2. She drained it. For a moment, nothing happened. She sat down looking triumphant. Turned to my father and started talking about his golf handicap. 1 minute passed. Then 2. I sat perfectly still, hands folded in my lap, counting the seconds like a metronome. At 2 minutes and 40 seconds, it started. Julia stopped talking mid-sentence. She blinked rapidly, her hand going to her throat. Her face, usually a mask of heavy foundation and composure, turned a violent shade of gray. She tried to stand up, maybe to excuse herself to the restroom. But her knees buckled. She grabbed the tablecloth to steady herself, pulling down this massive centerpiece of expensive lilies. Then the emetic did exactly what chemistry dictated it must do. It wasn't polite. It wasn't dignified. It was violent. Julia made this guttural, ugly sound that silenced the string quartet. Then she vomited directly onto the head table, all over the silk runner, the china, and the skirt of her custom-made gown. The smell hit us instantly. The woman who'd spent 60 years cultivating this image of untouchable perfection was now heaving on the floor in front of 200 of the city's elite. "Mom!" Sebastian shouted, jumping up. "Mom!" She looked up at him, eyes wide and unfocused, gasping for air. "I don't," she slurred. "I don't feel." She collapsed sideways into the mess she'd made. The room erupted into chaos. People screaming, crowding around. But I stayed seated for one more second, watching the destruction. It was ugly, tragic, and it was exactly what she'd ordered for me. Then I stood up and took charge. I told the DJ to cut the music, directed the coordinator to clear a path for paramedics. Sebastian was on the floor with her, his surgeon training kicking in, checking her pulse, her airways, her pupils. "Pulse is thready," he called out. Pupils dilated. Respiratory rate elevated. The paramedics arrived in 4 minutes. They loaded Julia onto a stretcher. She was barely conscious, moaning something incoherent. As they lifted her, her beaded clutch slid off her lap and hit the floor. The clasp snapped open. Contents spilled everywhere. Lipstick, compact mirror, and a small empty glass vial. Sebastian saw it. He froze. But that wasn't the smoking gun. Next to the vial was this piece of heavy cream-colored stationery, folded into a square. I reached down and picked it up. I knew what it was before I opened it. Julia's handwriting. Elegant looping script. "Sebastian," I said quietly, cutting through the noise. "Read this." He looked at me confused, then took the paper. I watched his eyes scan the words. "Ladies and gentlemen, I must apologize for this interruption. My new daughter-in-law has struggled for years with personal demons. We hoped the stress of the wedding wouldn't trigger a relapse, but it seems the alcohol was too much. Please forgive the mess. We will get her the help she needs." It was a speech she'd written before the reception even started. She hadn't just planned to make me sick. She'd planned the entire narrative of my destruction. She was going to take the microphone while I was vomiting on the floor and tell everyone I was a bulimic alcoholic having a breakdown. She was going to destroy my reputation forever. I watched the change happen in Sebastian's face. It's a rare thing to watch someone become an orphan while their parent is still alive. The concern vanished. The panic vanished. His eyes went cold. He looked at the note, then at the vial, then at the woman on the stretcher. He finally saw it. The architecture of the trap. The years of manipulation. The carefully constructed lies. He realized the monster wasn't under the bed. She was the one who'd tucked him in every night. He folded the note and put it in his pocket. "Didn't look at me. Looked at the paramedic. She didn't have a stroke," Sebastian said. His voice sounded like grinding metal. "She ingested an emetic and a sedative. Check her bag for the vial and call the police." The lead paramedic looked startled. "Sir, are you sure?" "I'm a surgeon," Sebastian cut him off. "I know what drug-induced emesis looks like. And I know what premeditated assault looks like. Call the police." The hospital smelled like antiseptic and bad decisions. Julia was stabilized in a private room, the drugs flushed from her system. But the legal consequences were just beginning. The police were waiting in the hallway. Officer Torres looked like he'd seen enough family drama to last 10 lifetimes. He was taking my statement. I didn't need to be emotional. I just needed to be efficient. I pulled up a file on my phone. While the paramedics were loading Julia, I'd texted the venue manager. See, because I'd restored the Pembroke estate myself, I knew exactly where every security camera was positioned, including the 4K camera behind the bar. I had the footage in my inbox before the ambulance even reached the hospital. I showed the officer the video. Timestamp 2:47 p.m. Julia looks around, pulls the vial, drops the poison into my glass. High-definition proof of a felony. Do you know what she used? Officer Torres asked. Ipecac syrup, most likely, I said. It's an emetic. Makes you vomit violently. She probably mixed it with a mild sedative to make sure I'd be disoriented. He looked at me. You seem very calm about this. I'm angry, I said, but I'm not surprised. She's been escalating for months. Sebastian walked out of Julia's room. He looked 10 years older than he had that morning. Walked past me, past his father who was sitting with his head in his hands, and went straight to the officer. My mother is awake, Sebastian said. His voice was clinical, detached. She wants to make a statement. Did she confess? The officer asked. Sebastian laughed. This dry, humorless sound. No. She told me she did it to save me. Said Margot was a gold digger ruining the Pembroke bloodline. Said I'd thank her one day. I felt my chest tighten. Even now, even caught red-handed, she was trying to justify it. This was the moment. The cord was either going to snap or strangle us both. Julia had played her final card. The mother knows best defense. Banking on 30 years of guilt and obligation to make him drop the charges. Sebastian reached into his tuxedo pocket and pulled out the cream-colored stationery. Officer, he said, handing over the paper. My mother didn't just try to assault my wife. She planned a character assassination. She wrote this before the reception started. This proves intent. Sebastian, don't, his father whispered from the chair. She's your mother. Sebastian turned to him. No, he said. She's a criminal. And if you pay for her lawyer, you're an accomplice. His father flinched like he'd been slapped. Sebastian turned back to the officer. I'm pressing charges. And I'm requesting an immediate restraining order for myself and my wife. I watched him sign the statement. It was the most romantic thing I'd ever seen. He didn't just choose me. He amputated the limb that was killing us. Cut her off with the precision of a surgeon removing a tumor. No tears. Just the sound of a pen on paper, finalizing the divorce between a son and his toxic origin. The next few weeks were brutal. Julia's lawyer tried everything. Claimed she was having a mental health crisis. That she didn't know what she was doing. That the stress of the wedding had triggered some kind of breakdown. But the pre-written speech destroyed every defense. You can't claim you weren't in control of your actions when you wrote a detailed plan 3 days in advance. The prosecution argued aggravated assault and reckless endangerment. Julia's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal. Probation. Community service. Therapy. Sebastian refused. I refused. We sat in court while Julia testified. She cried. Said she just wanted to protect her son. That she thought I was manipulating him. That she panicked and made a terrible mistake. The judge wasn't buying it. Mrs. Pembroke, he said, you didn't make a mistake. You made a plan. You acquired a controlled substance. You waited for the right moment. You executed that plan. And you prepared a public statement to cover your tracks. That's not panic. That's premeditation. It's been 12 months since the wedding. Julia is currently serving a 24-month sentence for aggravated assault and reckless endangerment. Her lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity, but the pre-written speech destroyed that defense. You can't claim temporary insanity when you drafted a press release about it 3 days in advance. Sebastian and I didn't move into the estate. We bought a fixer-upper on the other side of the city. It has good bones, but it needs work. Just like us. His father calls sometimes. Leaves voicemails. Says Julia is suffering. That we should forgive her. That family is family. Sebastian deletes them without listening anymore. I'm sitting at our kitchen table right now, working on a bowl I broke last week. It's this Japanese technique called kintsugi. You don't hide the cracks. You fill them with lacquer mixed with powdered gold. The philosophy is that the piece is more beautiful for having been broken. The The break is where the strength is. For a long time, I thought a perfect marriage meant no conflict. Smooth surfaces and easy days. But Julia taught me something valuable. She tried to shatter us. Tried to find the stress points and hammer them until we crumbled. But she miscalculated the materials. When we sat in that hospital waiting room watching police lead her away in handcuffs, Sebastian and I didn't fall apart. We fused together. The trauma didn't leave a scar. It left a seam of gold. We trust each other with a depth most couples never reach because they're never tested like this. I know with absolute certainty that he will choose me. And he knows that I'll see the threats he's blind to. I finish the bowl. The gold lines catch the afternoon sun, shining brighter than the original ceramic ever did. It's imperfect. It's jagged. And it's unbreakable. Sometimes the people who try to destroy you end up building something stronger than they could ever imagine. Julia wanted to prove I didn't belong at the Pembroke table. Instead, she proved that some tables aren't worth sitting at. And some families are the ones you choose, not the ones you're born into. The wedding photos arrived last week. We threw away every picture with Julia in it. Started an album with just the two of us. Just our friends. Just the people who actually love us. That's the thing about restoration work. Sometimes you can't save the original structure. Sometimes you have to tear it down to the foundation and rebuild from scratch. And sometimes, what you build is better than what was there before. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, share it with others, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about toxic family members, standing up for yourself, and finding strength in the broken places. The cracks are where the light gets in, and sometimes, that light is pure gold.